Hello and welcome to The Wise Why. I'm Kirsty Vanderbolk and I'm joined this morning with Tony K. Silver. And Tony was brilliant to me, and that's the reason I asked him on this morning. So when I first set up my LinkedIn page for the company and also myself, I was still in that moment of not wanting to be seen on social media. And Tony was the first person who grabbed my hand and pulled me up and said, you need to shine. So anyway, that's enough about me. Tony, over to you. You are an incredible LinkedIn expert. Please tell the audience all about who you are and why you do what you do.
Yeah, the why is really important. So my name is Tony K. Silver. I am a LinkedIn profiler. Two important things there. The K is very important because unlike Kirsty, my name is reasonably common. But by adding the K in the middle of it, it means that if you Google me or go on LinkedIn and look for me, I am the only one, and that makes it very exclusive. That's the reason for that. Yeah, I think I just checked on LinkedIn. I think it was back in November 2020 when we first. Yeah. So it's been a long old journey. But yeah, I set up as a profiler 4 years ago, nearly now, and the why was really around having been on the platform and using it properly since 2008. Because at that point, apparently, I was old. I was 48 years old at the time, but I got made redundant, or sorry, my job was made redundant, and therefore I was a victim. And there is no ageism in this country. Maybe so. And yes, at 48, apparently I was not experienced. I was old, in which case I kind of did lots of things that were wrong, like applying for jobs that didn't exist and things like that. I got taught that I needed to do two things. One was to go networking, the other one was to start using LinkedIn properly. And I sought training in both of them, which then allowed me to start networking, which I still do to this day. I've been to thousands of different events. Okay, the last couple of years, most of them have been online, but the previous 12, 13 years were not. And I started going out and helping people on LinkedIn. Because what I discovered very early on, and there was a lot less people then because it's growing at a really 3 people per second join LinkedIn, so it grows at a really rapid rate. Um, but the people I was meeting, networking, didn't really understand it, and it's endemic. There's lots of people on LinkedIn. I'm going to be really, really generous and say 95% of people I meet are on LinkedIn, but not getting the full benefit from it. And the main reason is LinkedIn, owned by Microsoft these days, but even prior to that, they don't broadcast. They don't tell you about the changes and anything else that goes on with LinkedIn. So I say to people, you join LinkedIn, whatever you did, say mine was 2006, never got a manual. So you kind of set it up, you had to go, you kind of filled as many boxes in as you could find, and then you just sort of tinkered with it from time to time. You didn't really know what to do. And then I heard about the LinkedIn algorithm. And yeah, the LinkedIn algorithm it's a bit of a beast. It has two major changes every year and lots of little tinkering in between. But yet again, LinkedIn do not go and tell people what the changes are. And I say, well, this is the rule book. How are you meant to be on LinkedIn that you never had a manual to set it up and you haven't got the current rule book on how the activities work? And I take it my mission, my why, is to try and go out to as many people and help them through whatever means possible, whether that's working with them individually or going on stage as a professional speaker, writing books, doing online courses, just so that I can move them from where they are, which is often frustrated and confused, to a point where they're comfortable when they realise it is a really, really great tool. That's my why.
I love that. And that's exactly what you did with me. I think you very quickly said you haven't got a banner up, your photo's okay, but why have you not got a banner? And then you went through some of my about section and you were very dry. I love the way you did it. You're quite dry about it. And you said, what is your message? What is your route to market? And you were very good at just giving me those tips. And at the time, I couldn't afford to spend the time with you, and I wish I could have. And I would urge anyone who is looking to change career or to look to raise their profile to invest in the time with you, because I've spent a lot of time working, following, having to do the research, whereas one session, 2 sessions with you, and I would have got there a lot quicker. So hats out up to you for what you're doing. I'm interested about the networking, because I know that a lot of people find networking really, really scary, and they don't think they have to do it. Why do you think it's really important?
I often say to people that LinkedIn and networking were separated at birth. They are the same thing, but in different guises. And for me, yeah, some companies networking wouldn't make a lot of sense to, and I fully understand that. But for a lot of people, it's kind of essential. It's their way to market, and I kind of cottoned onto it. Yes, originally I was networking to find a job, so I was trying to find people that had opportunities or knew people that had opportunities. But then realised actually it was a great way, and it's on different levels networking. If you go into a networking group expecting to sell, then you've completely missed the point. It's nothing to do with selling. It's about building relationships. And when I go to networking events, I'm looking to kind of do it on three levels. I'm looking to meet new people. I'm looking to meet people that I've only met 2 or 3 times and start to build a relationship. And I'm looking to meet the people that I've known for quite a while and just, chew the cud with them as well. So it's all around about building those relationships. And I use 2 words, and I say people. I use a lot of 4-letter words in my business. I get a great. What's he going to say? Help and give are the 2 main ones, because I want to give to people. I want to help them, and I think if you go networking with that sort of attitude, then immediately will be brought in. The people within the network will embrace you. And then, more importantly, once they are comfortable around you and they realize that you do give value and you are a helping person, then genuine referrals start to happen, or signposting, as I like to call it, because I categorize referrals as I'll only refer someone and use the word refer if I've actually paid them to do something for me. And I think that's fair. Signposting means I know that they're pretty good at what they do, and therefore I think you should talk to them, but there's no guarantees behind it because I haven't actually paid them to work. So it's a great way for most of those companies that fall into the micro business category in the UK, most definitely, and that's 90 odd percent. But even some of the larger ones need to go networking. Certain industries are better at it than others. And I was told when I first started to avoid the accountants, the men in grey suits, which was probably the worst advice I ever got, because the accountants, and yes, some of them were men in grey suits and quite boring, but a lot of them aren't. And who are their clients? So again, networking is about seeing through the room. Although the accountant at the time may not be someone that was particularly interested in what I did, some of their clients potentially could be. By building a relationship, they could then sort of signpost you to people. So yeah, I think networking is, it should be part of a lot of people's strategy. It's not going there collecting 10 business cards and having a coffee and a bacon roll.
So you talked about earlier about how at 48 you found yourself redundant, and I know that I was 48 when I changed my life, so there must be something magical about that number. But who helped you when you suddenly found yourself in that horrible situation, and looking at how you were, we're too old, we've got lots of experience, but we're too old, how you were going to move things forward? Who really helped you and supported you?
It was, I always think that actually initially it's got to come from you, because if you don't reach out and you don't do the stuff, then you won't find the people. An executive job club was actually one of the key points for me personally. And I would love to tell you who pointed me in their direction, but I cannot remember. That is, I am old and I do forget things. But they told me about it. I looked them up on the internet, and there was one literally within 3 miles of where I lived. And it was them. They are a charity-based organization. They put you through a 15-week course, but they're a bit like me. They're a bit mischievous. So the first 2 weeks, they said, go out and do what you do and report back to us. I immediately knew when I was made redundant that actually finding a job was a full-time job. And I get up in the morning, I come down to my computer, I'll be wearing jacket, etc. And I would take it really seriously. And I would probably put in 30, 40 hours a week. It would be going visiting various different industrial estates. Indeed, a Monster came into the equation, etc., etc. And the first 2 weeks, I'm proud to say that I got big praise from the people that run it, saying, if the rest of you put the effort Tony did, you also might find a job. But in week 3, they hit me with a sledgehammer and the rest of us, I must admit. And they said, yeah, again, Tony, fantastic amount of effort you've been putting in there, but you've been doing it all wrong. What? Yeah, unfortunately, about 70% of the jobs you've applied for don't actually exist. They are ghosts. They are companies that have no intention of getting anyone externally to take the role, but they have to do it to fulfill certain legal criteria. Or a bit like the estate agents who forget to take down that sale ball outside the house for a couple of months. Yeah, a lot of them left stuff on there, and that was a bit of a shock. But they did say to me, yeah, the two things you need to do is to go networking and to start using LinkedIn, but start using it, not just being on it. So I was one of those people. Yeah, I loaded my CV onto LinkedIn and expected people to come to me. And of course, we know that's not the way it works. Through the charity, they and I remember this really well. They said, well, we are part of the Chamber of Commerce. We've got a charity-based membership, which means we get so many free seats at their networking events. There's one next Friday in Slough. Who'd like to go? Yeah, I'd like to go. I looked around the room, and to my dismay, no one else had volunteered. But actually thought, no, it's about 1.6 miles from my house. If I have to, I can walk there. And I did. And it was, scary. I was going to add another word to the end of that, but I won't because I don't want to swear.
Yeah, not
it was very, very, very scary. Walking into a room with what I perceived at the time as 70 people in suits. And my proposition at the time was, hi, I'm Tony. I'm looking for a job. Yeah, the blank faces. I learned a lot of ways of getting out of conversations by people needing to go to the loo or having a cup of coffee or spotting someone across the room they need to speak to urgently because they didn't want to speak to me about that. And it was kind of, okay, that hasn't worked. But again, I realized the only person that could solve this was me. And I went back and I considered, and I went back to the job club and said, look, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but by saying I'm looking for a job, it kind of turned a lot of people off. Can I go there representing the executive job club? Yeah. Following month, I went back and it was a complete 360. Everyone was interested in talking to me. And then when I dropped into the conversation, oh, by the way, I'm one of those people that are looking. Okay, have you heard about this networking group? No. And then I kind of made it very clear that, I am sponsored by Job Seekers Allowance. Basically, I have no money. I'll come as my guest, don't worry about it. And that opened up loads and loads of doors. So although, yes, I got help from people, it's because of what I did. So I think it's all from within. You need to go out there. Don't expect it to come to you. You've got to step outside your comfort zone. This is, really one of the most important things I can tell people is, even the public speaking, which I'm now heavily involved in. If you'd asked me 4 years ago to come on here, I'd have been washing my hair, something similar.
I'm glad
you've
you're
got
not.
to step out. Well, it needs washing, but I mean, you've got to make those. You've got to. Someone's eventually challenged me and said, "Tony, you've got to stop saying no. You've got to say yes at some stage." And I did, and 3-4 years later, you can't get me off.
No, and we have yes days. I don't usually, there's it's an American movie, but we have yes days for our daughter because obviously as a young child, all she hears is no. We don't want to keep telling you off. No. And we have yes days, and yes days are so important. And yes is the most, next to yet, it's the most powerful word. It's like, I haven't got there yet, but I'm going to say yes. And I've been out networking in the last sort of 6 months, really getting out there, pushing my brand, and it's made such a difference. And my inbox is now getting to the point where I'm hoping that soon I'll get that second member of staff, which is phenomenal. And that's come from networking and obviously LinkedIn, but mostly from networking. So yeah, I love that. Now, one of the questions I always ask is, 4 years ago, you were out there and you were not in a great place, whether we can make it fluffy or we can just be honest and accept that. So you weren't in a great place. You learned and went on a huge, and some people call them quantum leaps, but I call it Alice moments, where you jumped into the big hole and you met Eat Me and Drink Me on the way down, and you just hit the bottom and jumped onto the surfboard. So you've done this incredible 360, my surfboard, and you've landed. But now 4 years on, has your why changed? Because I always find this really interesting, because the why you were 4 years ago to the why you are now. Now you're talking about your 4-letter words and your help. So I'm just intrigued about your why now and the journey?
The why I do what I do now, is because there's two reasons. One's a bit fluffy, as you used the word earlier, so I shall repeat because I listen. It was that I wanted my wife to retire at 60, okay, which she is this year. And I said, well, the only way that's going to really happen is if I set up and work on my own. You know, I'd found a job through networking. I'd been in that probably about 7 years, and it was, I won't say who it was. You can go on my LinkedIn profile, you can find out. So I'm not going to hide it. But it just wasn't a good fit. It also wasn't very well paid, and I'd come from an industry where I was getting good remuneration. Let's put it that way. I thought, well, the only way to be able to support my wife is for me to go out on my own and be, master my own destiny. So part of my why was, darling, you can retire at 60. You haven't got to go to school anymore. You can teach those kids and bend down. And my wife's needs are shot to pieces because she's been teaching 3 and 4-year-olds for the last 35 years. And they're a lot lower. You've got to bend down to them all the time. But also, it was around that real gap in the market that I saw for people to genuinely go out there and help people on LinkedIn. Now, because the company that I had worked for was the Chamber of Commerce, I was also for 3 years running their events. I went to lots of different places all over the place, and just dropping in some of the LinkedIn hints and tips I had then, I could have the audience in my palm of my hand at a networking meeting because of what I knew. I thought, well, there's just so many people out there. But what I want to do, my why, is to teach them how to use it, not become dictatorial. Well, I'm actually a LinkedIn expert, and therefore you should listen to me and do what I say, because that doesn't work. And I thought, no, I need to teach them so they can use it. And I'm there in the background as a help, because LinkedIn does change regularly. So if I trained you back in the day when we first met in November 2020, some of those teachings would be out of date by now, very easily. So I thought, if at least I teach them how to use it and get the fear out of LinkedIn, and get the frustrations and the confusions about it out of the way, then I jokingly say, there's 25 million people in this country that could do with my help. And I might get to them all. I very much doubt it, but I'll have a damn good go.
So I know there are lots of people that could really benefit from your expertise and your help, and the way that you do it, because you do it in such ways. You were talking about, you empower people to run with the platform, to do it. You're there as a steady, and a heartbeat behind, ensuring that people are moving in the right direction, but also at their own pace. And I think it's absolutely incredible. So were there any aha moments along the way when you've been at your networking event, or you've been public speaking, or even when you met someone like me, that you went, aha, that's why I do it, or aha, no, I don't want to do this anymore?
I certainly have the word retirement crossed off my list of things I want to do. I don't really see retirement as something that is something I want to. Yes, reduced hours, picking and choosing who I work with and the days that I work is definitely on the agenda. But no, the aha moments is it's kind of when I get recommendations and I get referrals from my clients and people that I've worked with. That's the, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping people. They appreciate it, and it was right from the start, where although there was a frustration at the start, and it was kind of me, again, not quite understanding. Now, I even had the nickname called of the implementer at a mastermind group that I went to, because if the mastermind guy told us to do something, pretty much guaranteed by the next meeting, totally had done it, whereas all the others were making excuses as to why they hadn't. So I started writing reports for people. So I do, part of my process now is still to write a report about, this is where you are on LinkedIn. This is where you like to be, having spoken to you and listened again. And this is how you would get there. And I thought, well, that's good. If they implement that report, they're going to get the benefit. And I continue to network, and these people would stand up at networking events and say, yeah, you need to work with Tony, fantastic. And I thought, oh, that's really nice. I love that. Go back onto the LinkedIn profile to thank them and realize they hadn't done half the work. Yeah, there was a big issue, and the issue basically was around the accountability. And as I said earlier, the only person you can be accountable to is yourself. I tried a very old-fashioned technique. I took 4 people down the pub once. 2 were existing clients and 2 were prospects. We had a curry and a few pints. At the end of that meeting, it was the sea change that I needed. I needed to have one-to-one meetings. Originally, yeah, that was at various business centres and coffee shops, etc. And now it's online. But they had to sit down with me and we go through the process, and I'd show them how, and also would tell them why I'm telling them what they do, which meant that they implemented it and therefore they got the benefits of it. And that kind of, yeah, changed the way I did my one-to-one service, because I'd assumed people would implement, and I was very, very much wrong. I always refer to the Benny Hill sketch when I mentioned assume, and those of you who are old enough will remember it. I won't explain it, but make a few people laugh.
So I hear that, because if I think about when I was really going to set up, my whole plan was only face-to-face coaching, and yet I coach on camera. So now I do a huge amount online, and obviously also in groups. I've now created a brand new webinar which is designed for the corporates who don't have time. So you do have to evolve. And I love the fact that one of your whys is that you wanted your wife to retire. I think that is absolutely beautiful. I really do. My husband says to me that we're going to go off as soon as our daughter is old enough. We're going to go and travel the world, and I'm like, I'm holding you to that. So yeah, I'm really going to hold him to that. What I'd really love to know is who or who helped you, actually. Yeah, just genuinely, who helped you along the way? Whose support was just incredible for you?
I don't think I can point to any one individual, because I started networking. Yeah, I probably have got an inner circle of people that I've networked with for quite a long time, and they are always people that will tell other people about what I do, etc. The training I got on LinkedIn was from a chap called Mark Pearl, who at the time was a leading light as a LinkedIn trainer. Not spending an awful lot of time in the UK, to be honest with you. He did most of his work in head offices all over Europe at the time. But he's the one who basically got me going in the right direction on that, and his support was invaluable then. But there are people like Richard Knight, who was a chap who I've been networking with and known for, we can't work out how long because it's such a long time ago. And that was quite interesting, because when I worked for the Chamber of Commerce, he worked for the FSB. Now, both of those organisations help businesses. But I'm going to say it, yeah. But the Chamber of Commerce had this really weird attitude that FSB were kind of rivals, which I never really subscribed to. And I think the defining moment was when we were both at an expo. Rich and I literally pulled up at the same time, and because I had more clobber than him, he was carrying half my kit up. And when we got there and looked at the plan of the actual the shell plan, we were next to each other as well. So yeah, so we've supported each other a lot over the years in what we do, and he came back into the real world, as I call it, of the being self-employed a few years ago, and yeah, we meet up regularly for drinkies, coffees and pints, etc. But yeah, he's been in, but there's lots of people. There's no real sort of people I can say, right, yeah, they're definitely. Chap called Warren Castle was my mentor. He helped me initially in the early days. But yeah, I just align myself with good people as often as I possibly can. And there's no one, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to put any one person's name forward as the person. I think that's very, very difficult to do for a lot of people. I think if you get a lot of good people around you, because they can't all do everything. And that's one thing that Warren did teach me. 3 key things when I launched my business. Find your niche. Well, yeah, that was the LinkedIn. That was just the profiling side of it. We had to sort of hone. Get a pot of money behind you, Tony, because how many businesses fail in the first year? Far too many. And then I remember this weird wording. That's why I'm really slightly rude. Get a team around you. Stop doing the things that you're shit at. And he was right. It is. Well, it's not a swear word, but yeah. Why are you trying to do things that you're no good at when there are lots of people out there? And we were chatting prior to this, and you were saying about your work is getting so much that Actually, I was immediately thinking you need a VA, and that's exactly it. There are plenty of support out there. You haven't got to employ people. There are plenty of people you can buy time from. But why not use an expert who's going to get it right and take a lot less time, and you can concentrate on doing what you're an expert at instead.
And thank you. And that's exactly why I asked the question. I don't think I've had one guest who has come on the show as this is the only person who's helped me, because it takes a tribe. It really does take a tribe to get you to where you are. So thank you for that. If you were, because we're coming to the end, there's two more questions I want to ask. One is, if you were to give one LinkedIn nugget, what would it be? Because there's a couple of people on here that I know would love to hear them. So we've got Annette Shaw and Rabina. They've joined us, and there's a couple of other people that I can't see their names, but they're all saying hello. And I always shout out to the live guests. There was one nugget. What would it be?
I think I'm going to go for the LinkedIn banner today, mainly because of these reasons. When you land on someone's LinkedIn profile, however you've done it, whether you've met them at a networking meeting and looked them up, or you've done a search and they come up in the answer, and 2/3 of the UK population are visually orientated. It's at the top of your LinkedIn profile. It's also quite large. Therefore, it's definitely something they're going to look at. That needs to affirm to the person that's looking at it that they're in the right place. What I mean by that is that you need to almost forget you're British to a certain degree, become American, and be very unsubtle. So if you produce certain products or you do certain services, I need to know really instantaneously when I look at your banner, that's what you do. So if I'm looking for them, I know them in the right place. And I see so many banners that have got lovely artistic pictures. I go, oh, I love your picture. I've no idea what you do. And that's the problem. I don't know what you do. And I often will talk about the 7-second syndrome, which basically is the attention span of people when they look at a website. It's a lie. It's less than that. But I don't like to scare people too much. And it's lovely alliteration. And you kind of got to make sure that you don't waste too much of them going, well, the banner doesn't tell me what they do. So yeah, get your LinkedIn banner sorted out. Avoid the left-hand side. Don't make sure it's not hidden by your headshot. So you need to check it on the app because the app is different. But yeah, if I land on your profile, would I know what you do within about half a second? If I don't, I might be scrolling and looking at the next person.
So I'm going to go and check my banner because I've just done a new one because I've rebranded. So I'm going to go and check because I think the logo might actually be slightly behind my head, but the wording isn't. So I'm going to check and shift my banner later. This is the moment where I kind of go, I should never have done this. So this is where you get to throw a question at me.
Okay, so I've known you now for 18 months, and
Yeah.
you're a different person to the person I met back then because you were a little bit confused and not too sure which way to go. And say I'm glad that I was of some help. If I was not to meet you again for 18 months, but then met you again, where would you be?
I hope in 18 months I will be setting up a farm. So I don't talk about this very often. This is the long-term goal, to help people who have been where I used to be. So my driving why is to give people the chance who don't have a huge amount of education, who've found themselves right at the bottom with nowhere to go and no help to climb out of that hole. And I want to create something which is a farm which will empower them, to give them qualifications that they can learn, because most of us that end up in that really dark place are vocationally led and not educationally led. And I'd like to create something which will give them the skills and empower them to get back on their feet. Because at one point in my life, I had absolutely nothing. And I genuinely mean I lived in a tent. So yeah, that's where I'd like to be, is on the next level of the journey. And I don't share it very often. So that's a very good question, because I would like to be on the journey to getting that set up.
I hope you invite me to it in 18 months' time in that case. Then.
I really hope it will be there. There's a lot of stages to get through. This has got to build to prove that I am worthy of the investment. And that's what this stage of Opening Doors is. But there is a reason why Opening Doors Consultancy is called Opening Doors Consultancy, because there's going to be bits of it. So yeah, that's why. So, Tony, I think the audience are, Annette, thank you. You've just touched me, and Ravina. So we've had some lovely people on here. Annette's just said great advice. I've changed my mind, and it tells people what I do. So she's listened, and that's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy, and we're going to say goodbye now.
Okay, it's been delightful talking to you again.
No problem.